Hello, Attactioneers. Welcome to the Attack Action Podcast, the longest running Flesh and Blood podcast in the world. I'm your host, Taylor Morrow.
And I am also your host, Tommy Fresh Hendricks. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, not only have we sniped Darth Prentice from Fresh and Buds, but now Tommy Fresh is officially no longer doing his podcast and just doing our podcast. Congratulations.
I really did it. I'm appreciative to be back on the Attack Action Podcast. Fresh and Buds has not gone away yet. You know, they might just take me off the air. You know, at some point they're just like, yeah, we can't do this anymore. But happy to be here, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much for stepping in. As all of us are gentlemen in our 30s here at the Attack Action Podcast headquarters, that means, thankfully, we have lives and responsibilities. So our other fine gentlemen, Colin and Isaac, cannot be here. So Tommy Fresh is stepping in today. So giving you a new look, making it real exciting for y'all. So you're welcome, I guess, to both you, Tommy, and you, the audience. So, Tommy, what's going on with you in your life? If you've listened to the podcast, so we usually vamp and bullshit about what's happening with us. So, tell me, what's going on?
Well, personal life, just very busy. Got engaged a couple months ago. We're starting to ramp up the wedding planning and all that. So, that on top of that work has been, a real nightmare. So it feels like the only time I really get a real taste of flesh and blood is when I'm podcasting, which is very nice. But, just trying to make sense of things with the flesh and blood world right now. Still loving the game and loving doing content for it, but it's really what's been going on. I did start another podcast where I talk about indie games with my cousin, who's going to be the best man in my wedding. And, I said, that's the deal. If you want to be best man, we got to start a podcast. I feel like I have too much time on my hands. I have to, I have to like make my life more miserable, but no, it's been a blast, but that's really it, playing a couple pro quests, not as many as I'd hoped, but it was a good time anyway to kind of get out there and play some games, man. That's what's really going on with me. What about you?
Nice. See, I thought my best man invite was just lost in the mail and you were going to unveil it here on the podcast, but I see
live on the show.
Yeah, live on the show that it's your cousin. Okay. Very New Jersey of you. Yeah, I'm doing this thing with my cousin. Yeah. Is he really your cousin?
Yeah. Actually, this is my second time getting married. My first time, one of my best men was one of my cousins, and then the second time, it's a different cousin.
Wait,
I didn't want to.
How many cousins do you have here?
Like 30.
Oh, 30. Oh.
Yeah, Irish Catholic family.
Nice.
My grandpa had never heard of a prophylactic or whatever, but
why would you?
Yeah.
Jeez, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. We I got to know some of my coworkers the other day a little bit better at a professional development situation. And many of them are one of 7, one of 9 siblings. I'm like, this is crazy, people. Yeah. That's so many outfits and meals. It's just nuts. So much birth.
Yeah. Well, I was at a Halloween party last night. My one friend brought his 2 kids. And nobody was paying attention to them, so I was playing with these kids. And God, 2 kids was tiring. I can't imagine anything. Yeah, one or more. It is. Hey, shout out to the parents out there. You're really doing it.
Yeah, you crazy fuckers, you. I have kids all the time at work, so I'm like, 7 hours, I'm done. I don't know how some of my people, I don't know how you are a teacher and then you go home and then you have children, Yeah. That's just crazy to me. But I don't have that type of personality. Anyway, what's going on with me? So basketball season has officially started As of this recording, we've just gotten done with our first week of basketball practice. If this is your first time on the show, I coach basketball, work at a high school, etc. And practice has been absolute dog poop. Most of my players are still playing football, which they just had their last game. We're recording Sunday. They just had their last game Saturday. So now it's the playoffs. So they have to go a longer week. I just don't understand why volleyball is 2 weeks shorter than football and soccer is a week shorter than football. And they all play twice and some more games. And we can't just have football start a week earlier, so it's done a week earlier. Why has it got to be so long? It only hurts us small schools. So practice has been freshmen who don't know what they're doing, which is challenging, and then some of my very, very good seniors. And now I don't mean to make fun of these freshmen too hard, but at this point it feels like fifth graders and grown men in the same practice, and I don't know what to do with that huge gap in skill level, because a huge part of the skill gap is, here's the drill, I'm going to walk you through it, and then they can't figure out how to do the simple drill, which is just go from spot A to B, and then get back in line. It's very simple, and they mess it up, and I can't handle it. So it's been frustrating.
I can imagine, as someone who did quite a few high school sports and recreational sports throughout my tenure as a human being on Earth,
and now being a human being is over.
Yeah, the whole, because I went to a very small school, like 54 kids in my graduating class.
Nice.
Like, that's how small.
My brother, 60 in mine. Yeah.
We really, they breed some of the best podcasters, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, totally. Undeniable.
And yeah, like when you're so strapped for resources, and like the football team was like not good, right? And like 30 kids on the football team, but still basketball season was a nightmare. I didn't play basketball, but I mean, obviously we're just friends with everybody. It was a small school, and you just you got to hear about it. So I can empathize with what's going on with you, my friend.
Totally. And I mean, it's the other little nugget of this is now so our first game is the 21st, and football will now be in the playoffs this coming week. And so they'll miss this whole week of practice. And if I just look at my calendar here, then maybe they'll be in the championship game after that. So I will then get my football players for a single day before our first game. And then we'll have 3 or 4 practices before our first very important tournament. So that's very stressful. And because, I mean, huge shout out to our football team. So here's the long story about this. We're in this league. We have to play 8-man football, which maybe you've never heard of, but you can play football with 8 men, which I prefer because scores are 76-55 because there's not a ton of people on the field, and you just have one fast guy and he gets it on the outside and he's just gone. You have to beat 3 people, and it's awesome. And you run, you go for 70-yard touchdowns. It's sick. So that's how I like to play football. That's more fun. And we have this very prestigious sports private school in our league, which I don't understand why they're there. They only have 370 kids, which is still almost double our size. And it's $60,000 to go to their school, which is per student. So, a year. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
And so that's more than my average salary or my annual salary. And then if you do the math, that's $22 million in tuition revenue alone. And I got in a large argument with their AD about the game time that needed to be played, and they wanted it at this specific time. And I was like, that's pretty tough for us. And they're like, well, that's the time it has to be. And they got the commissioner involved and all of this stuff. And they're like, it would be totally unfair if we played at these other times because it would be a hardship on us. And I'm just sitting here going, one student makes more, like pays you more than I make in a year. And you cannot make this time adjustment. You have all of the money and resources in the world. We have 18 people on our football team. You have 34 and you're playing 8-man. Get out of here. So just an absolute, that was like a week leading up to homecoming, which was terrible. Anyway, and then we beat them on Saturday. So they probably showed up to our school is fucking in the middle of nowhere. There are 200 people in the town and it services, this huge area. So you basically just drive on the freeway, take an exit, and then you're in this like little town and you're like, I think that's the school. And then you show up to our field and you're like, why is it surrounded by concrete and those bleachers look like they're going to fall down? I love my school. And then you go, oh, we're going to fucking smoke this school. And then you get smoked. Enjoy your 5-hour drive back to the Bay Area, Richie. So anyway, shout out to our football team.
Is that how far they have to drive?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
That is like they got to take off school, right? Like the kids.
Well, the game was on Saturday, so no.
Oh, it was a Saturday game. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty insane. 5 hours. But I guess like there's just not a lot of schools out there, right? Or just for some reason that 5-hour away school.
Yeah, because it's one of the few like 8-man football schools that we're competitive with. So we have to play. I mean, yeah, 5 is a lot. I mean, our closest opponent that's in our division for all of our sports is 45 minutes away. That's the closest one. Then the next closest one's an hour, and then that's it. Those are in many directions, 45 minutes and then an hour. So those are kind of the minimums. We have a league opponent for basketball, volleyball, baseball. That's like 2.5 hours away.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It is brutal, especially during basketball season when your game's at 7:30 on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what's been going on with me. I did some ProQuests. We'll talk about that here later in the show. Let's move along here because I could just talk about my life because it's a podcast. Let's talk about news.
Let's do it.
The biggest news that just happened was the Calling Melbourne. And congratulations to Ben Dodd winning the whole thing on Azuri.
Woo.
And propelling our sweet Mistress of Darkness and Murder out of the Living Lurker format. So that's nice. Or not.
I mean, I think that's pretty exciting. Like Azuri, and this has to be like a big like moment of validation for a lot of LSS, right?
Yeah.
Because Azuri is like certainly a powerful hero. We've all known this, but like was always like in the cusp of those like top 8s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just never really taking it home like on the big stage like that. And then for it to happen was pretty exciting, especially with what the finals was. And actually the whole top 8 breakdown was very, very interesting as well.
Yeah, quite, which we will get into a little bit later into the podcast, but big shout out to Ben. That's awesome. They for sure knew what they were doing. I was watching some of their games back before this podcast, and very skilled player, very exciting. So that's great. And I'm excited to talk about the implications of all of that here a little bit later. Shout outs. So I got a couple of shout outs. Tommy, I don't know if you have any, but go ahead and get your noggin working here. Shout out to Kieran, the podfather in Flesh and Blood, aka Mr. Classic. Just in the commentary booth again. One of my heroes feels like a strong word, but we're going to use it, podcast inspiration, great commentator, just great to have him back in the game and doing his thing.
Yeah, huge shout out. And I don't have a lot of shout outs, but I do want to shout out Riley Groff, who's been on Fresh and Buds. One of the first people I met in the game at my like a road to Nats in Hoboken, New Jersey. And he is just like the best dude and like really built up like the central Pennsylvania community. He's lowered his playing a little bit because he's doing a little bit more judging, and he judged the ProQuest I was at yesterday out in Reading, PA. And just always like good to see that guy, right? And like, you know, we had some nice conversations about the state of the game and stuff like that. I'm like, well, this should be a podcast. Why are we doing this for free? He's like, I don't want to come on until we can talk about heavy hitters. I was like, all right, fine. But you know, great dude. He's written some stuff for LSS. You know, check out the episodes of Fresh and Blood he's been on, but he knows his stuff and you know, is a very critical thinker in the game, which I think is something we should really celebrate.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, those people you need them. It all falls apart without people like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So awesome. Last shout out for me, Oliver Fye, the GOAT, won the CC ProQuest I was at the other weekend and hosted my merry band of far northern Californians for the weekend. He's a great host, great dude to hang out with, and helped organize some cramming sessions before our draft PQ. So just awesome dude. Check out the OKNY YouTube channel and that sort of thing. So with that, let's I'm gonna plug some of our Attack Action podcast stuff, and then we'll get into the main topics for today. So guys, gals, people of the world, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you. Second thing, if you find it valuable and listen every episode, we had a couple of people come up to me. This is the first time this last weekend where somebody was like, hey, you're Taylor from the Attack Action podcast. And I was like, wow, that has never happened. Usually it's like I have the logo on my card sleeves or whatever for my equipment. And they're like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's my podcast. And they go, oh, yeah, you do sound familiar. Okay, I've listened. But I had two people. One person was named Blake, another Blake in Flesh and Blood, super nice, loves the stuff, so shout out to Blake, thank you very much. And then I believe the other gentleman's name was Ernesto, and it was the best compliment highlight from my ProQuest weekend. He goes, you're Taylor from the Attack. I was like, yes, I am. Thank you so much for listening. He's like, yeah, I listen to every episode. You know, I used to listen to M&R, but now they suck. And so I listen to you exclusively. And I was like, hell yeah. Also, M&R, RIP.
RIP, you know? Manor Podcast.
Yeah. But anyway, so those were great. So after 3 years, I'm famous enough for some two random people to actually know who I was without, I don't know, context clues. Like I wasn't doing the podcast live and they were like, what podcast is this? Oh yeah, I've listened to before, you know? So that was awesome. So anyway, if you listen and enjoy our stuff, please consider supporting us on Patreon. The entry tier is $4. And nowadays in this economy, that's probably less than a latte, you know, or 2 cups of drip coffee at 16 ounces a month. That's it, $4. You get access to the Discord, which is an elite group of community members. I'll tell you what, it's blown up. The Discord's blown up right now while we're doing this podcast, you know? And it also gives you access to our Patreon exclusive Time Snap podcast that we do, which is non-Flesh and Blood related. It's whatever related, just our interests, which is really fun. And then you'll also get an invite to the Attack Action Podcast Hype House happening in early April. That's right. Whoop, 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 Hype whoop. House. And that is just the idea of that is to just recreate the Airbnb memories you have from whenever you travel for like a big tournament. And you're always like, I went 2 and 4 or whatever and played side events, and that was fine. But what was really sick was doing this wacky draft and doing shots off of Tommy Hendrix's belly back at the Airbnb. That was the fun time. So we're going to recreate those memories at the Hype House is the whole idea. And if that sounds fun to you, get in on the podcast stuff. So thanks.
I mean, it sounds unbelievably exciting, and you all should be checking out our Patreon at the Attack Action Podcast.
That's right.
Nice. And I gotta say, Taylor, I mean, I know that it's the first time that people have come up to you and said, "You're Taylor Morrow from the Attack Action Podcast."
Have they said that to you also?
All the time. They're like, "You're Taylor Morrow from the Attack Action Podcast." It's like, yes, I am.
$4, please.
$4, please. But with all that said, let's get to the main topics.
Oh, look at that. Professional. So, Tommy, I can't believe we didn't talk about this earlier, but you mentioned heavy hitters and the people at home for sure as a known brute lover, connoisseur.
Mm-hmm. A carnivore, I think I would call it. Carnivore, Tommy Fresh. What are your thoughts about the little bit we've seen, and what are your hopes and dreams? So hopes and dreams are immense. This is a set that personally I've been looking forward to, just some brute action. Sure. We had Welcome to Wraith and we got to experience, like I wasn't here for the beginning, right? So I got to experience like the farewell to Wraith draft. That was very fun. Got to draft some Dory and some Rhinar. It was very cool, but it'd be really exciting to have a modern Flesh and Blood draft set with Brute, right? Where these new ideas and kind of fundamentals that they've been using in their draft sets, especially since Gottlieb came on board, to see how it will play with Brute. And I think Brute is such an interesting class because they printed Intimidate on Rhinar. And I think they really just, they stuck it in the box and say, damn it, this stupid, like Intimidate is really flavorful. It makes sense. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, but just the fact of Rhinar's hero ability, you can only push that kind of discard thing so far before Rhinar just becomes super unfun and unplayable, or not unplayable, but unfun, and make it very toxic in like a CC format. And we see glimpses of it in Blitz. So I'm interested with heavy hitters to see how they handle Brute design going forward, right? We saw technically two Brute cards. One was a Brute Warrior card, one was a Brute Guardian card. The Brute Warrior card, rewards you for it having Go Again, which is cool, and it's 2 for 6, blocks 3, red. Wow, classic. You know what? That's like that's your apple pie of Brute pie, or of Brute cards right there. And then the Brute Guardian one, 0 blue costed non-attack action, 0 cost, has to do with creating gold, I believe, or sacrificing gold. I haven't looked at it in a hot second, but
it's talk a big game. Choose a number. The next time you deal that much damage or more damage to a hero this turn, create that many might tokens.
Okay. Yeah. Might tokens. The Warrior Guardian one cared about wagering, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, might tokens we've seen, they're good. Then also we saw the new token Agility from the other card, which is I guess like a fixed quicken.
Right.
In a way, it just pops at the beginning of the turn, and then your next attack gets Go Again. Is that Do you have that up in front of you? Is that attack
I do.
action or just attack?
It just says attack. Next attack this
Awesome.
turn gains go again. Yep.
Which is very exciting. Hey, listen, start off your turn with, a go again Hexagore, or I mean, listen, hey, I'm a dreamer.
Yeah.
But
Love it.
so the implications of the set, I think, is very exciting. My hopes and dreams is that I think there's a lot of, you were on the podcast last week on Fresh and Buds, which is still going on for anybody who's still confused. But we talked about, there's a lot of hot takes out there. There's a lot of big voices in the community saying that ProQuest numbers are down, Armory attendance is down. We don't know for sure if that's true or not, right? This is all anecdotal stuff, but
yeah,
I'd be willing to bet, and this is a conversation that actually Riley and myself had yesterday at my ProQuest. It's like, it's very tough to go from Dusk Till Dawn, which was our last supplemental set that you can't play limited with, had like a lot of really cool cards, but wasn't really, a very interactive set outside of building a new CC deck or whatever. And then going to Bright Lights, which, we could, and we'll talk about our thoughts on the limited experience, I'm sure, but like, there's only so many limited junkies in the game, right? I think it's something to consider that people love their heroes, they love their classes, and they want to play with them, right? And when you do a whole mechanologist set, you're really saying, hey, listen, this is you're going to have to wait a little bit if you want to play around with some like seriously new cards for your class, which makes me excited for cards in heavy hitters, right? I think we get 3 classes that 2 of them haven't gotten a lot of love. One of them, hopefully they changed the way that hero plays. I would say Warrior's gotten some love, but Brute in terms of like general Brute cards, there's a lot of complaints there. Warrior, I think they need to figure out a new way to play Warrior, right, on a different axis, and I believe they will, and I think they're going to do that for all 3 of these heroes, because we can't just have block out Fatigue Guardian every single time we see it, and we can't see balls to the wall variants Brute, and then you can't see pump my weapon 10 times Warrior. So I think there's a lot to be hopeful for, and I think hopefully this will bring people back to the armories, back to the ProQuest, get people excited for Pro Tour 1, or Pro Tour LA. So those are my thoughts on heavy hitters. Very exciting. I'd love to know your thoughts though, Taylor.
Yeah, so I think those are all insightful and thoughtful. I think I like a lot of those points you made. I particularly am interested in seeing what they do with, all of these classes. Brute especially probably at the top of my list, because it's like, okay, a Brute is 6 power matters, right? And then like, how many different ways can we play with that? You know what I mean? So, Levias is stupid, fun deck, cool situation that's going on, but it's like, has no hero ability that actually does anything, and then like kills herself. So, which is very thematic and cool, but also hard to, play. And then, you can't push Reinhardt's ability too far, because then it's just like you have no hand and you take 12 to 18 damage every turn, is then what happens if that deck gets too pushed and Intimidate gets too good. You know what I mean? And those are just like kind of just such the surface of probably what you can do with 6 power matters. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be cool, hopefully. And I'm excited for new heroes and new hero abilities. And it's the same thing with Guardian. Like, we also can't have a set that mirrors Bright Lights again, which then also kind of mirrors Outsiders, which is like, we have a hero that really wants to block. This is just my opinion. and I will be bummed if this is kind of what it is. But we have like one hero who kind of wants to block and the game wants to go long. We have one hero who is drafted a little bit less, but if you get like the right cards and are able to harness the bit of variance that's there, you have like a broken powerful deck. And then we have another hero that can like have these big pumps and have this kind of big single attack or few attacks or something like that, you know. So if that's the archetype they wind up with the hero, with the warrior, guardian and brute, then it'll be like a little too formulaic. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about being a part of this game is that there seems to be no formula, you know, for drafts or what their designs are going to be. So I would love for the Guardian to be different, because this will be our third iteration of that class. It'd be the same thing, like you said, for warrior. Like we really need to have, like, it's fine if it feels like a warrior, you know, but let's have it be a little bit different. And so, I mean, these cards are pretty sick. I was looking at them again, you know, and the runner, the 6-power warrior brute card can have go again and creates another agility token. Like, that's pretty nuts.
Awesome.
Is that your 6-power attack comes in with go again and sets up your next turn. And then you have your, you know, your weapons and et cetera, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I just want to see some creativity in what these new heroes are. I was really looking for, personally, a new class, which still might be there. Who knows? I don't think so, but that would be awesome. My final note on heavy hitters is the thing that's saving, I think, Bright Lights, or not saving Bright Lights, but making it a huge hit in my mind, is how good the expansion slot cards are.
Yeah.
And if we can have the same type of bangers out of the expansion slot for heavy hitters, huge win. You know? So those are my thoughts.
Those are some great thoughts. Now I have a question for you.
Oh yeah. I maybe have an answer.
You know, I'm sure we've talked about it and you've talked about it on the show, but this is a podcast, so why not have a discussion? What are your thoughts on Monarch Draft? Seems to be like a little bit out of the blue, but we did have a kind of Monarch Draft season. So what were your thoughts on it?
Loved it. I love drafting Monarch. I think it's fun as hell. I know it has flaws, and I know what they are, and I don't care. I think it's really fun. I love it. I like the talents, you know, having that pool of cards to draft from. And I think all of those heroes are really fun. And the gameplay is great. It makes for pretty fun gameplay. Like, you have dramatic moments where you kind of take a bunch of damage, or you take a grip of damage and you use some equipment and you pivot off of that into your own exciting turn and that sort of thing. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I only asked because it's the last draft set that we had, Brute, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I felt, and maybe I don't have a lot of experience with Monarch Draft out and stuff like that, and just like random Monarch drafts here and there.
You cut out for a second there, Mr. Fresh.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I said I don't have a lot of experience with Monarch Draft outside of the releases and some random drafts, but it was like the last Brute draft set, and I felt like, you know, and looking at runner here for heavy hitters, and kind of, you know, the obvious comparison I'm going to draw is Dread Screamer, right? And something like a Dread Screamer always felt like a way, like, to come in for 6 with go again feels like so like you can't fatigue that, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you're not boosting in the set either. So, you know, like, so I understand, like, yeah, I don't want the blockout strategy either. You know, and something we haven't talked about, it is gladiator themed, right?
Yeah.
So I have to imagine it's not going to be, I mean, there's going to be defense, but when I think of gladiators, it's like, no, this is like kill or be
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I personally really hope that heavy hitters kind of brings that, right? Like, no, you could try and block in this set,
Yeah.
but you should block smart, not just block.
Right.
That's what I think we're both hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the wager is now a bolded thing. Next attack that wages this turn gets +3 and overpower. Like I'm excited for betting and creating more money, and this is a thing from Crucible that I'm like, I remember saying on the podcast, hundreds of years ago. And I was like, wow, this is exciting. We're going to have a whole separate resource system with copper, silver, and gold that we're going to have to like also manage. That's exciting. And then, that still hasn't happened. So, so maybe we'll get more money and we'll have more tokens to fiddle around with. So that'd be sweet.
So we don't know exactly what wager is yet, correct?
No, correct.
So double down the Guardian Warrior. I'm looking at it right now. It's a non-attack action, blocks 3, costs 2. It's a red. You may destroy gold you control rather than pay its resource cost, which is what I would initially thought what wager would mean, right?
Yeah.
You can, but it seems to be different. Next attack that wagers this turn gets +3 and overpower, and that's something. Overpower is fun to talk about because I remember when we first saw it in Dynasty, we're like, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's like whatever.
Yeah.
It's not dominate. And then like we play with it in bright lights, and you're just like, oh, okay,
pretty good.
Yeah, this wins games. So it's definitely built for limited at least, and it will probably start to leak into constructed. And what else does it say? If a hero would create 1 or more tokens from a wager, so I guess there must be like some kind of like I'm trying to like think design wise how they do that, right?
I mean, it would be great if it was both players got in on the wager. You know what I mean? It's a non-attack action that says, okay, bet or wager any number of copper, silver, or gold or whatever on, the outcome of the next attack or some shit like that, and then both players get to do it. Which maybe feels a little fiddly, like all of a sudden we have a whole new wager phase with wager reactions and wager instants or some shit. But I think it would be fun. Like, all right, I got 2 copper on this next attack. I'm gonna deal you 4. And you're like, all right, I'll take that bet, raise you a silver,
I mean, yeah. And then like, there's not a lot of attacking going on. It's just back and forth.
Yeah, totally. It's just hardcore betting.
I'm all in,
Yeah. Which is definitely going to be a card. Guaranteed.
Oh,
Guaranteed. Yeah. Guaranteed. We'll probably also get cold foil gold tokens as armory promos or some shit, I bet.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. They really should be gold foil, am I right? Hey.
Whoa. I mean, can't wait.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll know more about heavy hitters here in a few weeks when Worlds happens. But before Worlds, there were ProQuests. And Thomas, you just did some ProQuesting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You took your Mistress of Darkness with you. Tell me how that went.
So I did 2 ProQuests. One of them was limited. One of them was constructed. Limited went well. I top 8'd and ended up top 4 and died in top 4.
Damn
Unfortunately, I drafted Max Nitro all day. Everybody was forcing Teklo, and I was just like, yeah, I'll just gobble up all this Hyperdriver Matters cards, and I'll just build like a really sweet Max Nitro deck, and ended up being really awesome. And then I really felt like I felt what mattered in each deck, throughout those drafts, based on what I drafted, what like the Dash IOs drafted, what the Teklo, I mean, very one note, felt like maybe 2 notes.
Right.
But
right.
I felt like there was a lot of nuance for both Dash IO and Max Nitro. They're not just aggro decks. They're not just item decks. You have to really think about what matters, what items matter, if you even want items. And I felt like that was a very fun ProQuest. I was happy to do as well as I did. got some store credit, bought a box. It was very nice.
Nice. Did you get a
but
box of bright lights?
I did
Nice.
because
Yeah.
I still need intoxicating shots, and I was like, yeah, whatever, because it was a store that's like I go to, but I don't go to that often. So I was like, yeah, whatever, let's get the box now. But I did a constructed ProQuest yesterday, and it was out in Reading, Pennsylvania. It's like hour 40 for me, hour and a half.
Yeah, Reading for me is 3 hours away. We have a Reading also.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and California, essentially the same state.
So close. Yeah.
So Reading, Pennsylvania, if you don't know, it's beautiful, beautiful town, just wonderful. And I'm kidding, it's very rough. And,
cool.
But
yeah. Reading, California also sucks.
Oh, yeah, it's the name.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to say it right. It's Reading. No, but but went out there and no shade to anybody from either of those towns. Wonderful areas, and we love them. But go there, and I even messaged some buds that I knew were going to be there. I was like, "What do you think? Is it going to be drum eyes? Are they going to be drum eyes?" And one bed was like, "Yeah, there's usually like at least 5, right?" I'm like, "Okay." Like a 30-person event, that's probably going to be the cap on terms of the amount of players playing a specific hero. And I was like, all right, I'm taking Levia. I'm taking it. I'm hoping to run some Dromais, not into my bad matchups, because it was either Levia or Riptide, right? And I had been thinking about Riptide all season. I was like, I have one constructed ProQuest. Maybe it's time. Maybe I'll eat up some Lexis, run into some good matchups, and avoid the Dromais and maybe do something. So round 1, it's Azuri. It's very, and I was like, oh, I knew right away. I was like, should have brought Riptide, but that was a close game and ended up really coming down to a Scabskin roll that didn't go my way. And
classic. Hashtag Brute Life.
Hashtag Brute Life. I just needed to do it because it was like my only out, and if I hit, I won. But if I didn't, I was losing anyway. So like, it was an unfortunate ending to that. Paired against Dorinthia round 2, which, I think it was a newer player, but I kind of like the Dorinthia matchup anyway. Like, it's so, there's something about Dorinthia. Sometimes you're just like, whatever, I'll just, as a Levia player, I'll just block when I need cards in my graveyard. I don't care if you do anything, right?
Yeah.
And I'll throw my husk to remove the counters at some point.
Right.
So that one went my way. And then round 3, I paired into a second Azuri. And I was like, man, this is tough. And that one did not go as easy for me. I did flip to Levia Redeemed in that one, which was kind of fun. And I was like, oh, I'm playing like a normal brute deck. And which ends up not being fair enough, or it's not unfair enough that you got to do the blast with it. So
yeah.
That did not go my way, and at that point I should have dropped, right? I was out of any kind of way to do it, but they were doing a giveaway for a Heart of Finals, so I was like, I'll stick around, why not? I didn't win it. Cody Williams won it, of all people. Come on, guy's like really good at the game and Heart of Finals. Geez. But
there is no justice in the world.
There is no justice. And then what did I play? Oh, and then, of course, I'm in the X2 bracket. I run into Alexi. I'm like, great. Like, all right. And it was close enough, but, I didn't pack enough numbskulls, I don't think. But that was fine. Then last round, I paired against a Tree Frog Dash, and I beat them.
Hell yeah.
Pretty handily. Yeah. I don't think that's a good matchup for like them into Brute. I don't think so. It was fine. I went 2 and 3. I mean, if I had spiked a couple of those games, if I had probably started off with the win against the Azuri, I probably would have saw the Dromais.
Yeah.
And would have like had a better shot at the top 8. But all's well that ends well. It was still a good day. I got to see some buds, and I'm ready for the new meta, right? I think we all are. Yeah. I think, you could argue that is why some of the ProQuests have smaller attendance, although this one was sold out. I will say that. So it was still a good day. What about you?
Yeah, our CC per quest had like 45 people or so. You know, it was big, 42.
Woo,
Well, I mean, quote unquote big.
that's pretty
Bigger
big.
than they normally have, or same size as usual, I suppose.
Mhm.
Yeah, the CC one did not, also you said something in there. You're like, I'm out of contention for top 8. I should have dropped. Fuck that, man.
Yeah.
Play your games, dude. You paid
Yeah.
money to be there. Play those games. Game's fun, even if you don't top 8, you could still
Well,
get
I
to play
brought my
some games
cube
and
and I
have
was hoping
fun.
to play that, but I was
Oh,
like, oh yeah.
sick. Oh, yeah, that's true.
What can you do?
Yeah, well, what can you do? Drop, I guess, and play cube, I guess.
Yeah.
So I brought Arachne, just 2 stars of the living lurker format. Shout out to us and Zane Johnson, who came up with that idea. Sub 100 point format. Check out the YouTube channel if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Amen.
And I, looking at the who top aided, which is just assassins and ninjas and one Dromai at my ProQuest, I was like, I brought the right deck. If I had just made it into that zone, I would have done just fine into the final or in top 8, as long as I didn't get paired against the one Dromai. But round 1 played a Dash Hanabi Blaster and had no clue what Arachne did, which is one of the reasons to bring Arachne, is because nobody knows what you're doing. Sideboarded wrong, and they saw the writing on the wall mid game when I came in with Smashing Good Time and Leave No Witness for 7. They were like, I think I have no chance of winning this game. And I'm like, that is correct. You are out of cards so quickly now. And so they conceded, and I was like, hell yeah. And people were like, hey, Smashing Good Time is too spicy. You don't need to bring that. And I played Dash round 1, and I was like, validated.
Yeah, you got there, dude.
Yeah, for a brief moment. Then paired into a teammate on Azuri, and which is not great. You want to see them like a little bit later, like round 4, But so round 2, so it's like kind of an assassin mirror, kind of not. And I feel pretty confident in what my game plan is. Blah blah. I feel good. I'm like, cool. I can beat Azuri. I can beat Levi. This is fine. But it sucks that it's my buddy. So game's going along. We're playing at lightning speed just so we don't go to time, which is always really fun. And I've just done, I feel so good through this whole game. Like, I feel like I'm just winning on all of the value trades throughout the game. I'm banishing his cards. I'm picking my good moments. I've pitch stacked a pummel into a surgical extraction to win the game. And it's coming down to my last couple of cards here. And I get the pummel off of a ponder after a codex play. And his like one card he has left over or something like that is he's running contracts as like a plunder the poor or something like that. And so I arsenal the pummel, and I'm like, awesome. I'm about to draw into my surgical extraction. It's going to be in this next hand of cards. Not the hand I draw after the ponder token, but the next 4 after that. And I just have like I don't consider it, but I let his like plunder the poor hit, and it banishes the top card. And it's my surgical extraction. And I go, oh shit. And I really should have just blocked it, because it was, I think I had the ability to block it, but I think because he was at like 6 health and I'm at 14 or something like that, I just wanted to go dagger into a thing. to kind of chip him down, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm looking through my grave and my banish, and then and it sucks because he only banishes like 3 or 4 cards in the whole game, and he hit some really good ones. Like he hit one of my codexes, he hit that surgical, he hit something else. And I was like, God, this is just, this is a bit of a bummer. And I was like, I have one CNC left somewhere in my, 12 cards left in my deck or whatever. And I don't know if I can like keep my arsenal full. I don't know what's going to happen or whatever. So anyway, he winds up, I almost get there, but unfortunately he's at like 2 health and I'm at 6 health, and I have 1 card in hand and he has 4 cards in hand, and we both have none in deck. So he winds up killing me. But it was a really good game. And then that just like, that's where things go a little sideways there. So then we get paired into we get paired into Dorinthia, and which is a tough matchup for Arachne because you have to kill Dorinthia because you can't fatigue them, because if you give them 3 cards to block for 9 off of their like Warrior's Valor and Dawnblade, you're trading 1 card for 3, which is the worst rate ever. I mean, the worst rate ever would just to be lose your hand to none of their cards, but so you can't win in that way. You have to kill them, which is really tough. But we got there. We pitch stacked 2 back-to-back hands with Cut to the Chase. So, and they hadn't really seen those cards, and so they took like 7 damage out of nowhere and went to 3, and then also did the if you have it, you have it, and then died to the next Cut to the Chase on Annihilate the Armed. So then I was like, okay, I'm feeling better. Then we get paired into Dromai. Just not great. It's like every Dromai game as Arachne, you're like, okay, I think I'm in this. And then all of a sudden they have like double or triple dragon turn where it's like Maragai, Chromai, Yindarai, and you're like, cool, game's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got paired into Phi, and I think I get paired into Phi. Can't remember. Yeah, I think I get paired into Phi, and that's a matchup I'm pretty excited with, but my deck just ran really cold. I started having really weird hands where it'd be like I have 1 blue attack and the other 3 cards are like 2 shreds and a defense reaction, and I'm like, well, I have no pressure, but I could block out, and then you just get chipped if you can't continually like get into Phi's pitch stack or into their hand or anything like that. So we just kind of died on a cold deck, which was a bummer. And then Dromai last round paired into and lost. So not super great performance, but who gives a shit? I had so much fun playing Arachne and was happy to have brought like one of my favorite heroes, if not maybe my favorite hero. And just going for it rather than being like, you know what, I'll just play Lexi or Dromai or something that I know that is like quote unquote acceptedly good. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's how that went.
So here's a question about Arachne.
Cool.
What, like, you spent a lot of time with this deck, this hero, and we're about to have a meta change, right? With Lexi going away tomorrow, as of us recording. What do you think is the future for Arachne in that meta? Is there anything that you should is like throughout your time playing, you've started to consider some maybe some new cards to mess around with? I'm not familiar with your list, so I don't know what you're really doing, or if it's just like a classic Arachne deck. Is there any room for innovation there? And where do you find it landing in the next month or so?
Those are great. Those are great questions. It's like you host a podcast. If you don't, you should.
Not anymore, apparently.
Yeah, totally. We'll let you have the indie game podcast because it's non-competing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. We'll put that in the contract. So it kind of depends. So, I mean, if you can theorize that, like, I mean, you could do the mental logic, but you never know what's going to happen. So if Dromai becomes the best deck or the deck that people are targeting, then that means we have ninjas upping their numbers, and then after calling Melbourne, we see Dashio do extremely well. Thomas went, something 14-1 or something insane.
Undefeated. Yeah. Until the finals.
The finals, yeah. Insane run. So maybe people are going to pick that up some more. So Arachne winds up in this spot where you have you're going to do really good into everything that's targeting Dromai, or if Dashio becomes a thing, that's like a great matchup for you. Even with I would expect Thomas's list, just because boost is like in your favor, so his stock, I think, rises. Their stock rises as this new meta emerges. If it emerges in that way, we'll find out. Also, deck tech for the Arachne list is imminent. We recorded it the other day, so it should be coming out this next week or so. And there's quite a few slots I could play around with. The ethos of the deck feels good. The core, which is basically getting to abuse black text a ton, because any ninja or ranger to keep tempo or pressure in the game doesn't want to block you. So you can really easily, a 2-card hand with a tunic resource can be annihilate the armed. They don't block. You break black text, banish a card, get a silver, come in with plunder the poor. They don't block. Banish another card, get 2 silver, and now you're ready to buy your black text back on the next turn, and you dealt 9 damage and banish 2 cards. And that's like, you do that a few times, and then all of a sudden they have, right around 10 to 12 health, and you're like, hello. So yeah, so it's I think it's going to be good, but we'll see how it breaks down. You really have no game currently in my list that I brought into Icelander or Kano. So if any wizards pop up trying to get crazy, you're screwed. And then I think you can make your Dromai matchup better with some of the slots that I have going on. But it's still pretty challenging. But you could get there.
Okay. Now, here's a question that just like you're talking about silver, right? Big part of the deck, right? Huge. There's actually a main thing about Arachne. You make silver.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Most fun parts.
Yeah. Making money. We talked about heavy hitters. Do you think you're going to get a generic wager card that all of a sudden makes these silvers look a little bit more appealing beyond their already unique uses?
Yeah, something like High Striker or something, like make copper or something, if this hits 3 copper, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. That would be sick. I mean, we already have one. It's called Payday, and it's an assassin card.
That's true.
And if you've completed a contract, you get 4 silver or something insane, which I've thought about a few times because it's pretty easy to black text into something else. It's
also a blue block 3, right?
Yeah, totally.
Not the worst.
So you could, in theory, like go plunder the poor into Fi, break mask, break black text, and then play Payday and get 6 silver maybe out of that exchange, which would be pretty sick. And then you just buy those back, and then you have 2 left in the bank for later. But the fact that you would break black text to do nothing but make money doesn't feel like fast enough. So if it was like a non-attack action that buffed your attack or something, then yeah, I would be into it. I don't know. That's a crazy question. But
You're bringing heaters, brother.
your damage output as Arachne is so low already that doing non-damage stuff on your turns feels pretty bad. So I don't know. We'll see.
The payoff would have to be excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I like, like those cards that are like, if this is played from Arsenal, your next attack gains +3 and then also has an ability. So something like that could be cool. Like if played from Arsenal, your next attack gets +3, and if it hits, create a gold or additional silver or some shit. Like that would be awesome.
It'd be really sweet.
Yeah,
let's do it.
let's do it. So anyway, so reverse questions on you. Yeah. Are you looking to play Levia or Riptide moving forward into the Worlds meta and or the heavy hitters meta? Which deck are you like, oh, this one is gonna be the one?
So I will say until heavy hitters comes out, it's Riptide. I'm pretty set on, right? I really like where the meta is going to go in theory here,
right?
And especially, and we'll talk about what happened in Melbourne in a hot second, but I think that Riptide has a lot of game into a lot of decks, and I think it's a little bit underestimated. And it's also, once Lexi's gone, I mean, sure, Azalea is probably still going to be popping up, especially both Riptide and Azalea get Bullseye Bracers back, which I'm very excited for because I've said it before, but Dromai is like unwinnable without Bullseye Bracers. I feel like it's like it's so hard, and like and friend of the show Jesse Harper might disagree, but I find it to be so hard without the Bullseye Bracers. It just really makes it somewhat winnable, rather than like a real uphill battle. And this might be a like, as good as Dromai is, it could be a pretty Dromai list meta with a lot of the decks that Lexi gate kept being able to kind of be out here, Ninja or whatever. So I'm really interested. I love seeing certain mechanologists do well because I think that's a great matchup for Riptide.
Yeah.
And I think Bravo will still be around in a way, but I kind of like Intoxicating Shot kind of coming into the mix there. It makes for very interesting games, I think, with Bravo. And on top of that, I think Bravo's on more of a buff up my attacks plan these days rather than kind of straight fatigue, which I think it gives Riptide a bit of an advantage. Levia is still going to be good, and if Dromai is the best deck, I think Levia can make a splash, right? I think it has a good matchup, and certainly, a lot of the aggro decks, like if you compare them to Levia is outputting a lot of damage, right? That some of these aggro decks won't really be able to do once Lexi leaves. Lexi is able to output that damage,
right?
So Levia does look good in that regard, but has the inherent issues, but the demi hero does help, and
that's what happens when you consort with demons.
I mean, I get it. I mean, that's why you're the number one podcast in the world. You consort with the demon, but now you got to have guests like me on.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it's Riptide until heavy hitter. Obviously, whatever brute is in heavy hitters, I'm going to mess around with. Right. and at least take a look at, and same with Warrior, because I love Bolton, and Bolton's even a deck that I would start looking at for this next meta, because that Raiden Bolton list is very good, and I think that we could see it make a big splash in the next meta. So I think it's Riptide. I'm itching to play some traps, right? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want Dashio to come in with Go again, throw out a grenade and me tar pit trap and say, too bad. You know, that is the dream. So like I'm super excited about that. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
gotta
where
feel
I'm
good.
at.
Nice.
Yeah.
Riptide is a hero that when he first came out, I was like, well, I don't care, you know? And then he's grown on me just like the pustules he has upon his body. Uh, and what really, one of the things that really did it was an intoxicating shot. Like whoever was in the lab thinking of that and was just like, you know, what would be a cool thing for Riptide if he got a 0 for 4 that just like was a trap in itself, setting you up for his whole game plan. It's just such a cool, it's got cool art and it's just like a really cool, fun designed card, you
Oh,
know?
it's so cool. You pitch you're pitching it throughout the game
Yeah.
and you're not attacking with it. And then like towards the end of the game when you're like, all right, all I have left is like traps and stuff. I'm gonna just throw this intoxicating shot. It's like they're gonna be really tempted to take it because of the bonuses, but also those bonuses can be their death,
Totally. Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's well named intoxicating shot. Like, oh, this could be really cool. Yeah. Really, really fun design in that card and that sort of thing. So it's cool. Riptide has become very cool in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play him, but I think it's cool. I also like how he gets around like the because you play cards from hand and then get to put a card in your arsenal. So he he makes all the arrows so much cheaper, you know. Excuse me. Instead of 2 for 5s, they're all just like regular 1 for 5s, you know, which makes them like slightly above rate compared to other rangers. But he has other limitations. But it's cool.
I also love, and I think it's so underrated how smooth the trenches in that deck. Right. Like, yeah, I know like some people were playing it in Lexi or whatever, you know, for, you know, some matchups, but it was just like for a matchup. Like when you don't have trench and Riptide, you feel like you're playing like a really bad deck. That's how good trench is, right? Because it smooths out the deck and like how it plays so well that it feels just like chef's kiss. Just amazing.
Chef's kiss. Hell yeah. That's great. Look at us. 2 lurkers.
Yeah. Lurking around
in the living lurker format, which will be a format in the Hype House. So hope you're ready. Okay. Let's finish up here with the Calling Melbourne. What so we see, we'll just kind of keep it to the top 8 here. So but the big news is Thomas Dowling basically going undefeated all the way to the finals with Dashio, which I love. Let's hype that up more so Arachne can feast. Let's play more Mechanologist. We love that. So incredible run. I was watching some of his games and he just was really intelligent and smart about his use of items and that sort of thing. It's not like there was a bunch of items out there all the time and stuff, but he just was obviously playing the deck quite a bit and knew what all the lines were and the interactions and that sort of thing. And he's using Symbiosis Shot. And, you know, so one of the things I thought was really smart was he would get backup protocol out on the field and he's in a Lexi match and they'd Winters bite him. And he would say, cool, awesome. I'll pitch my blue here. And then have 2 floating and use that 2 floating to backup protocol, get the blue card I pitched back out of my graveyard, you know, so I essentially lose nothing to your cute little Winters bite play, which I think is just freaking awesome tech.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that. And, you know, I think that's great. I mean, the top 8, you know, we'll run it down is Dash, Max, Azuri, Lexi, Dromai, Azuri, and then Lexi. Lexi, Really cool to see 2 Bright Lights heroes in there and 2 assassins. So it's a little bit less mono heroed out, which is really cool. Thomas, what are your thoughts here?
So I think the story for the weekend is going to be Thomas Dowling with Dashio, right? You know, this is a breakout deck. This is going to be something people are going to be building for Worlds, probably, you know, depending on how everything breaks down. I want to know a little bit more about Joel Gibbons' deck on Max.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't seen a lot of talk about what was going on there, but the top 8 Max is I would say a huge story as well, because this is a deck that, you know, seems to just be like a boost deck with some kind of cool stuff you can do, but I want to see what was in that deck. 2 Azuris in the top 8, and Azuri, Ben Dodd, the winner, beating a Dromai in the first round of top 8, which is another huge story there, because I can't imagine that's a great matchup. You know, so I'm interested to see, you know, I got to go back and watch these matches, but I'm interested to see what happened there, because I'm not even sure they had that one on stream, though, because they probably were looking.
They did.
Thomas. Oh, they did.
They do have the Ben Dodd Dromai matchup, and he has a lot of tech. You know, he's got Down and Dirties.
Sure.
So throwing those in the arsenal. He's got, you know, looking for scraps, E-strikes. I think he even had Nimble Strike in the deck also. Hurl, you know, so plenty of go against to kind of clear dragons and keep pressure at Dromai, you know, which is kind of what you want to do. And then sometimes your pressure card is like, hey, I'm going to get rid of your arsenal, you know, so pretty effective there. So yeah, person who knows what they're doing for sure.
Awesome. And then, you know, we have our Alexi sprinkled in there. I think that was all expected. Michael Fang, obviously, you know, still doing Michael Fang things.
Traveling the world, going to callings, top 8 them. Yeah.
Unlimited resources must have, but, you know, he is a great player. So obviously makes it all worth it. So yeah, looking at this top 8, you know, very interesting. Like Azuri, obviously a very powerful deck, and looking to be a deck to be in the next meta. We will see how this Dashio kind of really plays out. Interested about that Max Nitro. Glad to see Lexi leave. The absence of a lot of Dromais is a huge topic, you know, out there in the world right now. But you know, people were ready for Dromai, right? I think it's a targetable deck, right? So, if you can target it, you know, other things are going to rise to the top. Like you see this, like really, you know, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different heroes in this top 8. You know, it allows for that. So we can complain about Dromai all we want, but it's kind of like an illusionist in general tends to be this weird thing in these metas that can be oppressive, but once it gets too oppressive, everybody starts to target it and things kind of oddly even out.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna throw my stake my claim here, this is my read on the top 8.
Totally. And I think, you know, listener of the podcast and Dromai specialist, Jua also says on Twitter, and I think it's a great summation of, you know, my feelings also about this game. Wow, this game is fantastic. Doomers and Gloomers lose again as the unexpected keeps happening. 6 callings with different winning decks. 2 new heroes in the top 8. I think the problem isn't balance. It's that people love giving up on innovation to go back to the safety of complaining, which I feel like is very true. And it's something I've said on the pod a lot. You know, we in the community do not have a ton of people trying to innovate on decks and the meta. You know, it's a super, super small percentage. And a lot of people, because the game is hard, are just like, give me that deck, I'll go play it, you know. and make any changes I want to it, rather than like looking at things from a fresh lens, you know. You know, just trying to give it you know, what's the thing I can really look at here? What is this doing? Can I build it in this way? And you know, I understand time is a resource and precious and stuff, but you know, I think there have been plenty of examples over the history of the game that try something new, you know, run with your idea. I mean, people forget Icelander was not a thing. And then Michael Hamilton did something really weird and put Wounded Bull in his deck. And now it's like, well, yeah, of course, that's the fucking way we play this deck. You know what I mean? It's like, why would I not play that card in this deck? It's obviously super good. You know what I mean? And then, you know, you could also go down well, I'm not Michael Hamilton. I'm like, come on, dude. Anybody could have thought of that. He just was the person who was like confident enough to try it. And, you know, so, and who knows how many times he's done that type of shit and it doesn't work out too, you know? So just freaking try is my point. Play Arachne, play Riptide.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't remember where he said this, but I think Michael Hamilton said it started out as just a joke deck, right? And then he was like, oh, wow, like the Icelander deck. He's like, oh, wow, this is good, right? And I don't know. I mean, I kind of like to hear that because it's like, oh, just have fun with like building a deck and maybe you'll be like, oh, no shit.
Yeah.
You know, this is,
I have something here. I think it was from one of his draft decks with Outsiders. I mean, Uprising, that he wound up with like just attack actions like Scars.
Yeah.
And other big cards. And he was like, hey, that's pretty good. Can this be a CC thing? Kind of how we saw what happened with Tarek and the breakout of Briar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was came out of a draft idea, you know, as well. So interesting.
Very interesting.
They just do it differently down under, you know?
Yeah. I thought you were insinuating that both Tarek and Michael Hamilton are from down under, but
no,
you know, they might be.
No,
down.
Tarek is definitely from up top.
Up top, the big top. and Michael Hamilton from the greatest state in the union, Indiana.
Go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers. So the interesting thing though about like this kind of like idea of like there's not a lot of innovation, I do agree. Yeah. And I hope that this is the moment. This could be the moment where people are like, okay, now we do have to like sit down and not just take an existing deck and change one or two cards. It's like, this is my weird tech, you know?
Yeah.
And really think about brewing decks. There are a lot of great deck brewers in the game, you know. Personally, I could think of like Ethan Van Sant, right? Like he's consistently brewing Levia decks. Not all of them good, but he brews them.
Yeah.
He's a great player. He makes them look good. You know, and like, I think we need more people like that. And I think that's where we come in, Taylor.
Totally.
It is it's time for us to start brewing.
Lurkers rise up, dude.
Lurkers rise up. I live in that lurker zone. That's my home, my abode.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
I'm excited to see where we take this game.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it on our podcast many times, you know, deck building is a skill. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't just are like, I'm a great deck builder, you know. I mean, maybe you do, but that's, you know, you're a freak of nature. You have a 48-inch vertical jump just from sitting on the couch. So everybody's not like that, and it takes a lot of effort, you know, mm-hmm. to brew. And it's like one of the reasons to play a deck construction game is that you get to put some spice in your deck, you know, and build it and see what it happens, and then move on. So yeah, I encourage everybody to deck build more.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Build
Awesome.
some decks.
Build some decks. Lurkers rise up. Here we go. Out of the muck, in the mud, we come to slit your throat. So with that, we'll move into our signature segments here, Tommy. We will first start with our crowd favorite, Pick, Pass, Pray, which is a draft scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you've done this one time before when you were on our podcast, which I can't believe you haven't been on more. That is a issue we at the Attack Action Podcast have now remedied because you are now on the team. So welcome.
I was hired.
Yep, welcome. So I'm going to give you 3 cards. You're going to pick one, pass one, and pray one comes back around. These are all from our newest set, Outsiders. Tommy, are you ready? Okay, here we go. First card is Overload Script. This is a Mechanologist action item. It has no defense. It costs 0 and pitches for 1. It has Crank, and it reads, this enters the arena with a steam counter. At the start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a steam counter from it. Your Mechanologist attack action cards get Overpower. Okay. Second card is Infuse Titanium Red. Costs 3, pitches for 1, is a mech attack action, defends for 2, attacks for 7, and has Galvanize. When this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +2. What do you mean, Junk? There's riches here in the sprawl. If you're willing to get your hands dirty. Kyle. Good boy, Kyle. Last card. Evo Cogspitter, which is a Mechanologist action equipment Evo arms. Defense for 2, cost 0, is a yellow, so it pitches for 2. And it reads, if you have a base arms equipped, transform into this, then equip it. Once per turn instant, destroy a card under this, put an item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand into the arena, and it has Blade Break. So, Mr. Fresh, which one are you going to pick? Pass and Pray comes back around.
I'm definitely picking Infused Titanium.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is I find that it's good in all 3 decks.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best stats in the like this format, right? 3 for 7. That's what we want. You know, great in fatigue, Teklo, great in regular Evo Teklo. It's you know, you can max create a resource off of your hyperdriver and then go into Infused Titanium. Great turn, awesome. And the stats are great, and you get the nice little benefit of Galvanize, which can be good in Max and Dashio or Dash. What's the database? Which is not for nothing. Blocking 4 off of 1 card, as we know, is quite good.
Yep.
And if you have like a hyperdriver lying around or something that's going to get blown up at the beginning of turn, if you're on Dash, the Galvanize does come up. I think Infused Titanium is a great first pick. I would feel comfortable. It feels like a generic card, right?
Yeah.
In this set.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to pray comes back is Overload Script.
Mm-hmm.
This is a card that I think is very good. I'm a little bit wary about taking it first pick because I think that it can be a little bit of a trap if you end up in something that like Teklo, right? Like I don't think it's that great in Teklo. It's fine. You know, Overload is a very powerful mechanic, but you know, I think you want to pray it comes back. It probably won't. I don't think either of these other cards are coming back, to be honest. But you want to pray Overload Script is coming back because this is your way in especially Max and Dash of beating Teklo, right? You need cards like this, but you don't know if you need that card yet. I think is the best way to put it. And I think you're always happy with infused titanium. And then you're going to pass the Evo because as good as they are, sometimes it's just not. It's a little bit too narrow, and I expect it to be gobbled up in the next 7 picks anyway. So that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Interesting. I picked Overload Script and Cog Spitter because I'm still unsure where they go in my draft pick order. Both are very powerful, I think. Overload Script, obviously, you get a ton of value off that. Coming with 3 different attacks, all with Overload, is pretty spicy. Cog Spitter can have a ton of value. Block with it, scrap it, play it, then be able to put your Overload Script into the arena at instant speed is pretty sick. And then you can block with it again. So, and so those I think are just interesting cards, but I don't think you let, even though those all have those interesting abilities and value and stuff, I still would agree with you. You don't really let infused titanium red slip by in whatever deck you're playing. It doesn't matter, because even a 2-card hand, 3 for 7, that doesn't lose you another card is really good. I'm going to go with, so I'm going to pick Infuse, but I'm going to pray for Cog Spitter to come back around. If I don't get Overload Script, that's totally fine. It'll probably be in my hand as triple D and kill me because I can't block with it, or then I'll boost it away, or it's a very powerful card, but to get it off in every game is a little bit more challenging. Whereas Cog Spitter, I don't care if I boost it. It's not a huge integral part of my game, but I can also block with it if I need to, and then use it later to scrap. And then it does help me get out those items that I have in hand. I mean, it can be really powerful when you put a mini force field or a dissolving shield from your hand into play, and now it can block at instant speed. So that kind of solves a lot of issues you have there. So I am going to pray for that back because it's going to be useful, and I'm just going to pass on Overload Script. And I'd have to be in a very specific deck for me to pick it above these other 2. So that's what I'm going with.
That's very fair. And I think it's also worth noting that I think you'd be happy with multiple infused titanium reds in your deck. I don't know if you want multiples of either of these other cards.
Correct.
I definitely don't want multiples, actually. So, I mean, we're right there. We're
right there. Just a little difference there. So awesome. Thank you, Tommy, for playing. Everybody at home, let us know in the comments on Twitter, etc., what your picks are, etc., in the Discord. Let us know. Now we come to everybody's second favorite signature segment, Board Game from the Closet. So here at the Attack Action Podcast, we play mini board games, mini games, video games, board games, card games, sometimes the greatest game or the most dangerous game, and
mind games,
love games, love games. I'm trying to think of what other type of games there are. Those are kind of the 2 other big ones. But anyway, this might not be our favorite or the best game, but it's definitely a game that we think is fun as shit. And it's Tommy's pick this time. So, Tommy, what game do you got for us today?
Been playing this game with my buddies who, are board game buddies a lot lately. It's called Moonrakers. It is a deck builder in a way with some different axes that you don't really find in these deck builder games. So basically, you start with this starting deck, and it's almost like Flesh and Blood. You get 1 action per turn with your cards, but there's these reactors in your deck that give you +2 actions. So basically, it gives you a second action, so you can continue to play out your hand, and then you can draw cards from your deck. And you're trying to complete these missions out in the middle of the board. The cool thing about these missions is they have a set different kinds of rewards you can get. You can get victory points, coins to buy new ship parts and new cards and stuff like that, and crew members to add to your deck. And then you can also get a random card for a ship part or a crew member. But you also have hazard dice that you have to roll. So like they're the little 6-sided die with an option, 2 options of 0 hazard, 2 options of 1 hazard, and 2 options of 2 hazard. So basically, when you're getting hazard thrown at you, you have to defend it with shield cards. You need an action to play those shield cards. You have them in your deck. So when you choose a mission, you can open it up to the rest of the people at the table. Say, hey, listen, I can't do this by myself. I need some help. We can divvy up these rewards. I'll take the victory points. You can take all the coins. But the only thing is, I take one of the hazard dice and you take the other hazard dice. And we collaborate until, somebody, sneaks in a win at 10 victory points. It is very interesting. It's so much fun to kind of like have that kind of negotiation aspect and then kind of build your deck to a point where all of a sudden you don't need to negotiate and you can kind of just sneak out a win, which is cool. And there's a lot of different strategies, right? These ship parts add cards to your deck. So you have 4 ship parts on your board and they'll give you like a static ability that you can use each turn, or it's like whenever something happens, which is pretty neat. So you can kind of build your deck and your ship to be able to play really well into certain kinds of missions and to be able to be really strong on one certain card type that you need to complete these missions. So very fun game, a ton of replayability. Been loving the hell out of it.
Cool. Yeah, it looks really cool. It's from publisher 4 Studio, and I guess they're an animation studio in Tennessee that has now pivoted into making some board games and that sort of thing. So seems really cool. 2020 Cardboard Republic Daredevil L'Oreal winner.
That's what everybody shoots for.
100%. Yeah, looks cool. I love me a deck building game. And I especially love space. Artwork looks cool. Box looks appealing. Cool. I'm excited to play this in the Hype House when you're there, Mr. Fresh. We'll play Moonrakers.
I will maybe be there, or at least my spirit will be there.
Oh, perfect. That's even better. Yeah, we are planning a seance, so it should be easy for you to show up that way. A little cheaper, I guess, depending on flights and that sort of thing.
I'll be having dinner, and all of a sudden I'll just disappear.
Yeah, your eyes will roll back in your head. Yeah.
Oh man,
crazy, cool. Well, thank you so much, Tommy, for being here today. I really appreciate that. I've had a wonderful time having a conversation with you, just talking about the game we love and doing it in the way we know how, in front of microphones and stuff on a Sunday morning. So please promote yourself in any way you seem appropriate or inappropriate for our podcast. That would be fine. So now the stage is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me on. You're just the best, and I love chatting with you and just having a good time. And we get each other, which I think is fun. And we understand how serious this business is, and
cutthroat.
But you can find me on my podcast, Attack Action Podcast, bi-weekly. I'm sorry. But seriously, I have a podcast called Fresh and Buds. I have community members on from all over the place, for flesh and blood, and just kind of keep it fresh, keep it saucy. And you can find me on Twitter at Fresh Buds Pod. And we have YouTube. All the episodes go up on YouTube, Spotify, all that fun stuff. And there's a cool Buds Discord. It's a nice place to hang out. And keep supporting Attack Action Podcast. They're the best best in the biz, my favorite people, and just happy to be here. It's a good time. So thank you, Taylor.
Hey, anytime, Tommy. With how busy my salaried co-hosts are, we might still have to keep getting you as an unpaid intern in the Attack Action Podcast media empire. So, stay loose, stay limber, be ready. You never know when you get called up to the big leagues. You know what I mean?
I'm hanging here, the minors, the Savannah Bananas or something like that. I'm ready. Hey, if the listeners like me, you can have me back whenever. If they don't like me, have me back every week.
Yeah. I mean, it's my podcast. I'll do whatever I want. So
amen.
They loved you. I bet this will be a great episode because all of our episodes are straight bangers.
Bangers, get it. Yes. And with that,
yep, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at the Attack Action Podcast. On Twitter, we are at BattleBro Taylor and at BattleBro Isaac. Shoot us an email, theattackactionpodcast@gmail.com.
If you would like to support us, like and subscribe, shop for singles using our affiliate link, or support our Patreon for as little as $4 per month.